Let's talk about one of the keys to living a good life, and that is seduction. Welcome to The Wealth Connoisseur. This is Dan Lentz. I want to speak to you about my favorite subject. Now, Ibn Pagan, when he worked with business professionals, found that if he helped them with their love life, everything got better, not just their love life. He found that their business got better. They were stronger in every which way. Now, what I want to talk to you about is seduction is more than just if you're a man with a woman, or if you're a woman with a man. Seduction permeates every element of our life. If you think about a seductive person, they're not just sexy to their husband or wife. They're not just sexy to the general public. They're sexy to the world. If we think about politicians who seduce the world, or celebrities who seduce the world like Brad Pitt, Angelina's not the only one who finds Brad Pitt attractive. So what I want to specifically speak to you about today is anti-seduction. Now, I cannot claim any credit for this. This is from Robert Greene with his book, The Art of Seduction, which is the Bible for this topic. Now, I want to do many videos about this because I really love the subject. And if we look at anti-seduction, it works like this. Say you were about to meet the Queen and you were a legend. We're going through the coronavirus right now and you had created the vaccine and you were a very high up official, very good looking, very seductive. You spoke 5 languages and you had a harem of women even in your life. And I'm speaking like this because mainly people on YouTube are men, so forgive me if you're a female listening and adapt. I hope you can. And so you arrive to the Queen and you have a sip of champagne and you realize there's a fly in it that you've just swallowed. And you cough and then you spit on the ground. And it's a beautiful carpet and everyone stops what they're doing and looks at you. Now, say that moment moves relatively quickly. It doesn't matter how well you did beforehand, you've left a bad impression. And we can all relate. We all know when we've been anti-seductive. And I don't want to go into a very vulgar example, but if you think of something really horrible, I've got a few friends who, when I'm out walking, they always spit on the ground, and it's just and I don't know. It's just, I hear a lot of people speaking about this. For example, Owen Cook talks a lot about this from Real Social Dynamics, and he talks about how a lot of guys say to him, "Oh, but I'm being genuine." And he says, well, look, defecating is genuine. You know, we all do it. But you don't just bend over and defecate on the living room of someone's floor. However, so much of what we do is exactly that. And I'll give you a personal example that completely changed and helped me become far more seductive. So I had a good friend who was actually one of the ones to get me into the subject, and he gave me a lot of fantastic information from Ibn Pagan and other really incredible gentlemen who paved the way recently with the subject. And he was a super seductive guy and still is to this day. And we lived in a flat together, so he was living in the top story of this 3rd story apartment, and there was a bottom door to the living room, and he used to always tell me to stop slamming this door. And I remember one day talking with him about this, and he was saying, look, why do you keep slamming this door? And he goes, no, you know what, let's sort this out. And I said, look, the door's just that sort of door. And he goes, yeah, but Dan, there's no barrier between that door and my room, and so anytime, day or night, you go through that door, it's waking me up. It's just a hell of an inconvenience. And so He goes, look, let me show you seriously how to close this door quietly. And I was so skeptical. I was thinking, how could you close this door quietly? Or is he just taking 10 minutes to open and close it? I didn't have the time. I had all these excuses. And he got up and he feathered this door open and he feathered this door closed. And very quickly, he showed me how quickly he could do this, in and out. And my jaw hit the ground with this. And he showed me how to do it. And it wasn't like I was incapable. I mean, I was doing martial arts at the time. I was doing a Japanese martial art. And I could do many things with my fingers. I was a talented guy, relatively good with sports, whatever. And it wasn't like I was just opening it with my elbows. And I was just horrified that I could open this door quietly. And I felt so embarrassed. I felt this shame even. I felt this deep shame that I was so ignorant. I felt ignorant. I felt dumb. And he sat me down. He goes, look, Dan, if you went to Japan, because I was looking at going to Japan, he said, if you open and close a door like that, you're not only being disrespectful to people in that moment, you're not only being disrespectful to the people in that environment, that group, however, you're being disrespectful to that whole city, that whole country even. He said the Japanese are very proud people and they really have a reverence for nature. So even the tree that door came from, you're being disrespectful to. And I thought, whoa. And I was just so embarrassed. And to this day, I've been a lot more sensitive opening and closing doors. And it sounds so small maybe. However, this has opened and closed some incredible opportunities. It's closed some garbage opportunities and it's opened up the world to a much more vibrant, beautiful place. For example, I was invited to hop in a Lamborghini of this very successful businessman, and his name was Craig. And I got to this Lamborghini and I said, hey, do you want me to take my shoes off? And it may sound silly, but this was a sign of respect from me to him. And I would happily have taken my shoes off and put them wherever. They weren't even that dirty. But hopping in a $200,000 car, I just thought it was a good sign of respect. And it may sound funny, but imagine if you've got that car and people just hop in with their shoes and scuff things. And it just showed the type of guy I am. When I said to him, do you want me to take my shoes off? You'd obviously do that if you went to someone's home. And if you're jumping into a very expensive car, it's something that may be worth thinking about. And in fact, I had an opportunity to go for a ride in a $500,000 Porsche, a brand new Porsche. And I actually showed up with driving gloves because I didn't even want to leave fingerprints in the car. And it sounds very silly. Leave fingerprints, who cares? Let the guy clean them. I didn't want this friend of mine, who I valued and respected, revered even, to drive home that day and see my fingerprints anywhere. Just that little, I've got to clean that now. Imagine you own this car, it's your pride and joy. He actually did not pay cash for this too. He financed this. And he has to clean it, he has to sort it, and it's a $500,000 car, brand new Porsche. And he looks over and sees a big hand mark from me. How many positive things do I need to do to make up for that? However, I already had driving gloves because that's the type of guy I am. And I just pulled up with driving gloves, and it shook the guy as far as it impressed him. He was thinking, whoa, what kind of guy is this? And again, I asked, do you want me to take my shoes off? He said, don't be silly. However, I jumped in with the driving gloves, even though I wasn't driving. And it's just little things like that can make a difference. And they may sound funny. See so many guys like, oh yeah, who cares, right? Who cares? And so what I notice is a lot of guys And you may be the same. We're comfortable in rough environments. You go out with the boys and and I've been a tradesman, so I spent 5 years in the trades. So I was a plumber, and you're in the welding bay and sparks are going everywhere and Damo's over there, Damo, and you're bonding with each other and it's smoky and you're comfortable. And a lot of women in general, I know we're in 2020, would be uncomfortable in that environment, because it's a rugged environment, and for whatever reason, I don't really care much to go into it. However, say we took you to a very refined area. So you're comfortable in this welding bay. However, let's take you to a Louis Vuitton store. Let's take you to a Hermes store. Let's get you looking at some handbags even for $100,000. Would you be comfortable holding that handbag? Does it sound weird? See, what's interesting is too, a lot of guys have this homophobic response too. Oh, that's gay, man. Going to a Louis V store, it's gay, man. I'm not into Louis Vuitton, it's gay. And they actually have linked homosexuality with refinement and finesse. Is a car that's built to such a high standard, say this Porsche, is that gay? Is that homosexual? Is buying a Hermes bag, for example, there's a guy I know who's a friend of Luke at RSD who I saw had bought a $500,000 Hermes bag. There were no women in this story, although he had multiple, I'm pretty sure he runs a harem. There were no women in this story. However, he went and bought a $500,000 Hermes bag as an investment, and I forget what it was made of, platinum with diamonds and everything, and it was so funny watching him with this Hermes bag, this woman's bag, and it wasn't like he was wearing it around his shoulder, he was just holding it in his hand, and he had it in front of his Lamborghini or whatever, and he was a really wealthy guy, boats and everything, and this guy Luke from RSD goes out with him all the time, and super alpha guy, and he actually talked about how it was one of the best investments he had bought, and his money was going nowhere with it. It was locked up, and in fact he'd been offered $750,000 as soon as he bought it. And so what do these guys know that the average guy doesn't, I mean, is it gay when a woman wants to be with him just because she found out he's got that bag? Because see, the other thing too is, with women, not all guys can even have a woman, this horrifying statistic where 80% of men are in celibate, basically, or very few options. And it's looking worse for a lot of people down the road. I mean, a lot of countries have a lot more men than women. And so there's going to be more of this even. But it's always been like this. The majority of women want the best men. And whether we like that or not. And so interesting ideas to think about. And so there's a lot of talk, of this sensitive new age man, and we think about, say, the gentleman. It's been around this idea for a long time. Now, there's so much adversity to this, it's like, oh, he's a puffed, or he's this or that. Now, this homophobia, I don't actually think it's negative towards gays. A lot of men aren't really negative towards gays, but they're negative towards themselves being perceived that way. They want to be perceived as like masculine, manly men. And this just can really hold you back with your seduction. You're rough around the edges. You're not as refined as you could be. Now, what I want to go into here is perception. Now, a lot of seduction is about the other person, not about you. See, everyone's in their own world, which is fair enough. Seduction is leaving yourself for a second and putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And this is what separates a lot of men. Now, if we go back to my example with the gentleman buying a Hermes bag, he is the perfect example of this. He doesn't care about this bag. He's not going to wear it. He's not going to put his cell phone in it and go to a club. He bought it as an investment. He bought it as a magnet for beautiful women that he wants access to. Now, what I've noticed is there's a lot of talk with guys, oh, I want to be genuine, man. I want to be genuine. Well, I'm not into Hermes, And it's never about you, though. See, I don't really see the value in a Hermes bag with, say, the Birkin. It doesn't look that good to me. However, almost every woman in the world sees the value. Why is it in every second rap song? Because these rappers are seductive. If you look at 50 Cent, yeah, he talks about killing people, and he's a gangbanger in a lot of ways. However, very, very seductive, 50 Cent. And he talks a lot to women. Look at the candy shop. So, with this idea, it's so hard for us guys to get outside of our own silly little paradigms. And a lot of stepping up and becoming the best men we can be is about diving into what women want. And of course not becoming a woman, obviously, but having some refinement, having some sensitivity. How does she feel? Say if we think of your place where you stay. How does it feel for a woman? Say you've got a car. How does it feel when a woman is inside the car with you? I remember when I was a manager and I had beautiful women that used to drive with me in the car. One was my wife, and as I progressed in the company, I had to train other women. And when they hopped in the car, they were often visibly shaken by how beautiful it was in the car. It smelled beautiful. I always had a nice fragrance in the car. It was always very comfortable. It was always a nice temperature. If it was hot outside, it was beautifully cold with the air conditioning. And I always said to them, hey, be sure to change this to whatever makes you feel comfortable. Because it wasn't about me. It was about them having a nice experience. And that's another key to seduction. It's all about you, Say I'm in the car and I'm a little cold, and the woman's hot, and she goes to turn it down, and I get cold. Hey, it's my car, right? Well, why didn't I just be a gentleman and put a jacket on? See, a key to seduction is not about the man being comfortable. So we've got to back up to, we're the salesmen, we're men, we're the salesmen, right? And see, a lot of guys even argue about this. I've got a lot of guys in my life right now who are going, oh, why should I have to do anything? She should sell to me. Even if we look at some of the best seducers in the world, they're still salesmen. They're still selling. Say we look at Dan Bazilaran, or whatever his name is. Dan, the famous Instagram celebrity. Dan, I forget his last name. Now, he even still sells himself. I watched an interview the other day. He wasn't going, oh, I'm just getting hit up left, right, and center. I just lie there. No. This guy's still putting a lot of effort in, and he admits it. He's not going, oh, I put no effort in now. He's saying that he's made it a lot easier for himself, but he still goes through his challenges. And say we look at Arash Sapar Deepazar, he has 5 women. And I showed a friend the other day and he goes, oh, he's so ugly. he's not trying to attract men. He's trying to attract women. Now, the guy's covered in tattoos. And essentially because one of the women that was dating him, because he's in an open relationship with all 5 of his women, was saying to her friends, don't judge him by his tattoos. And he goes, whoa. He said, I want to be judged by my tattoos. Why do you think I got tattoos on my face? He's putting himself out there like a peacock. And the tattoos are a key to this. And I thought to myself, wow, would I be willing to tattoo myself? And to be honest, I wouldn't. So there are some extreme examples out there, you guys. And it's not about us, gentlemen. It is not about us. And as soon as we get that, that's one of the keys. And what I noticed too was when I would shop at places with beautiful women, I would come across these really successful men. I remember I went to this charity event and I was in real estate, and my boss had a ticket and he gave me his beautiful BMW. Just got this BMW with cream leather interior, and it was a convertible, for God's sake. And he sent me out with his secretary, who was this beautiful blonde girl called Amy, and she had a short skirt on and everything, and she looked really, really good. And I jumped in this car, took off to this closed charity, and there was a house there that was ridiculously expensive. I mean, this is in Christchurch, New Zealand, so it was like a $10 million house there, which anywhere else in the world would be just horrific. I mean, it was just this incredibly big building in the most prestigious area in town, and it was a closed, gated area, and this is where this charity was. And I remember there was the man that actually owned that $10 million house there, and he was just so sleazy, and he's all over the secretary that I took with me. And I remember not being that impressed with his secretary, and I was a bit thinking, oh God, who cares? And I was looking at her and I was thinking, what is he seeing in her? And even at the time, I think I was single, and even if I was not with girls that were even as hot as her, I didn't really like her energy, and I didn't really think she was that intelligent and all this, that and the other, and I was judging her in so many different ways. And I suppose if I look back, I see what he's looking at. She's a good looking girl, of course. And this is the funny thing. As we age, you may already be able to relate, depends on where you're at in life and what age. You start to appreciate when you have a beautiful woman around you, even if she's not the full package or whatever, because they're like flowers, right? Beautiful women are like flowers, and they add so much. There's a saying that we men are nothingness and women are everything. And there's this energy around the feminine which is so expansive. I mean, I went to a friend who's recently single, and he's just got nothing in his house. It's just this blank house now. And I said, man, you need to add some feminine elements to this, some flowers, some vases, you need to make it more feminine. And I've got a good friend, Rob. He runs an Airbnb, and he turns everything feminine. He's just a wizard with this. And it's a real skill. It's, in fact, his long-term girlfriend gets compliments all the time. Wow, you're an incredible interior decorator. It's actually not her. It's him. He's got such a seductive eye for this. And so I was so surprised that he was all over her. However, I get it now. And as I'm getting older, I'm 33. When I'm around a beautiful woman, I really appreciate it. And I'm not like, she should appreciate me. She should know how intelligent I am. She should know how successful I am. No. We're the salesmen, gentlemen. We are the salesmen. So when I had women in my car, they would feel comfortable. The seat was comfortable. I had an aux cord, so I said, hey, put on whatever music you'd like. I had it set up so it was beautifully calibrated. It had a nice bass to it. And, it was very clean, like laboratory level clean. I regularly clean my car, and I had it so, and even beforehand, if I knew I was taking one of these young women out with me, I would clean it that day. It was clean that day. And then I was super organized. So I had to go and sell for them. So I had my laptop bag that looked really beautiful, and it was very organized, and I was just really well put together, and it made an impression. These women were visibly impressed. And I remember once I took this model that I was with to go look at Ferraris of all things, because I was looking at getting a Ferrari. And the first one was $500,000. Then the gentleman there, super seductive guy, he goes, oh, have a look at this. And it was $250,000. I'm thinking, oh, it's getting better. And then the last one, we went right down to the back, was this black 355. And I was actually really seriously looking at getting this. And I should have, funnily enough, because it actually doubled in price over the next couple of years. And my friend had a red one, and he sold it for so much profit that he was able to buy a new 455. So it's pretty incredible how you spend money at that level. Like I spoke about the Hermes bag, that you can actually hold your money and or make money, which is incredible. So there are different rules. This is what I'm trying to explain here. And a lot of us spend our time in this poverty mindset. If we look at it, it's almost like this, how do I explain? It's this poverty spirit that one of my mentors talks about. And it's heavy, it's dense, it's grimy. And as we evolve in life, we go to more refinement, we go to more elegance, we go to more sensitivity. And this is where we become more seductive. You know, if you think about, say, in these movies, we have men taking women to the opera. You know, that's a certain man who can do that. And I'd be lying to you if I even joked about being level 10 with this, or if we do this out of 100, at level 100 out of this. I mean, there are some guys out there, this is what I don't think people realize, there are guys out there who are so seductive that it's just actually unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable. So if we think about a guy, I always like to say to gentlemen when they're in a relationship, there's always a guy out there called Carlos. Now, Carlos does not just know one language, like you. He knows 5. Carlos does not just know one instrument. Carlos does not just know one song. Carlos is a master with storytelling. He's sensitive and he's strong. He's wealthy. He has his emotions handled. He has other women in his life. He has abundance around that. But when you're with Carlos, even as a man, he's sensitive to you. He makes sure you're comfortable. If you go to his house, he gets you a drink. He's a man's man as well. He does not just have any drink too. He has the drink that you want. He has options. And I hope you get the idea. I remember my friend who is very good with his interior decorating. He has this incredible house and has a heated pool and all the trappings of what a beautiful house would be. And I went to stay, and the bed was just so beautiful. And I lay in the bed and I was shocked by how incredible the sheets felt. And I asked him the next day, and he said, oh, they're 1,000 count Italian cotton or something ridiculous. And it just made such an impression on me. And I have another friend who spent $7,500 or something ridiculous. In fact, it was actually a $10,000 bed that he got a discount on. And this thing could go on different angles, and the middle could go up, and it vibrated. And when he brought women back to this bedroom, it was a showpiece now. I mean, it was like, hey, sit on my bed, just feel this. Oh, lie there, just feel this. I mean, how seductive is that? So it's all good and well being super seductive though. However, if we're being anti-seductive, then it just nullifies all of the positives. You know, there's this scene in Seinfeld where something happens to, I think it's Jerry. He has a Porsche or a BMW, some flash car, and it gets this horrible smell. I forget what the smell is. And he just cannot even give it away after this. And this is what happens when we act in an anti-seductive way. This is what happens when we don't pay attention to the other person. And we selfishly ruin it for everyone. So I hoped you found some value in this, and I actually truly hope this was transformational for you, because this idea seriously has been for me. So bless you all, my friends out there. Seduce the world and make it better for yourself and everyone else.